I'm Kevin Czajkowski from the University of Toledo, and this is our 8th Globe Mission Earth webinar. And today's webinar, we're going to focus actually on elementary globe, and Ellen Perkins is going to talk, and then Jessica Taylor. Let me share my screen here, and we'll get the webinar going. Okay. So I always like to start each webinar the same way, and that's I have to talk about our program here. So Mission Earth is a funded program by NASA, and our partners here are listed: Boston University, WestEd, Tennessee State, Berkeley, and NASA, but specifically NASA Langley in Virginia. And then our speakers tonight, and Ellen, that was the only picture I could find of you. Sometimes I can Google people and find pictures online, but I didn't find any of you. But and then Jessica, you see, I have actually that's the picture you're using for anyway when you go off video. And the reason we're doing this, we want students to do projects, and they could do globe projects and present them at various places. And I'll talk about that for a second. We have the Globe Virtual Science Fair due April 3rd. And there's a new rubric that was put together this year. It's a little easier, so it'd be good to look at that when the kids are doing their projects. And I know that there is, I think there's an awards given out to high-ranking projects, but then they're picked out of the hat of kids that can get some money towards going to the Globe annual meeting. So that's kind of exciting. And this is an international. Oh, I should change it to Science Symposium. See, I don't even have the right name down. So I got to change this slide for next time. It's a symposium, not a science fair. And then we have the Globe Regional Science Fairs. I did change this a little bit. Let me see if I can move our, there we go. So there's these science fairs around the country. Symposium, we're not calling fairs anymore. And the Midwest one is May 19th and 20th. At Purdue University. But you can see the other ones. I think there are actually dates for these other ones now picked out. That May 19th and 20th weekend is very popular with everybody. All right, and then the annual meeting, that's another place where kids can present their projects. And actually the annual meeting is really cool because there's students from all over the world, and then the kids that go there get to meet people from all over the world, exchange emails, do that type of thing. All right, so that was my introduction. I can stop sharing. And we'll turn the screen over to Ellen Perkins. And she's a teacher at Waterloo Elementary School in Monroe, Michigan. And that's pretty close to my house. So I've gotten to go over there a couple times and see her and her students. And Ellen, you're like a pro here. You got it going already.
Okay, so like I said, this is my first webinar. So Janet kind of walked me through it yesterday, so bear with me. But I took students once a week and we would measure surface temperature and collect soil for the class to sift through and look for worms. Students would record their data in a journal. I love the My Science Journal from Elementary Globe. The journal just works really well for young students. It's easy for them to read. It's easy for them to understand. I found that doing the surface temperature during lunch recess worked out well for my younger students. And then in the afternoon, we were able to look for worms and dig through the dirt, and that seemed to work out well. The lessons that I've learned so far with Globe is just to remember to ask for help, and collaborating with the older students is just, it works really well. The younger students and the older students, they love working together, and the older students can help put the data into Globe. Two of my students, I asked them to present their project at the Satellite Science Fair. And then they also presented their entire project to the school. And here they are, they won the People's Choice Award, not just because they're cute and little, but also because they're just really smart. What I love most about Elementary Globe is it just encourages young students to explore, record, and analyze data. You just can't go wrong with that. So Jessica has some information that she's going to share about Elementary Globe. So I'm going to turn it over to Jessica. Let's stop sharing my screen. Okay.
Thanks, Ellen. You have more slides there. Do you want to share some more information, or do you want to go back and forth?
I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, but thanks.
Well, I'm going to share my slides, and everyone is welcome to interject comments and things that they have worked with related to Elementary Globe. Particularly, I'd love us to have a conversation about how to take Elementary Globe from the storybooks and the hands-on activities to data collection, and potentially then that idea of really doing student research. So if this format looks okay with everyone on their screen, I'm gonna keep it in this sort of presentation mode, if that's okay. Great. Okay, so what is Elementary Globe? Well, Elementary Globe are a set of resources that the GLOBE program developed to really help bridge into the idea of formal GLOBE data collection with protocols, including then those next steps of data entry and science research projects using that GLOBE data. And what it's based in is storybooks. And then these storybooks have complementary lessons, and it's really designed to enhance literacy skills with the storybooks. And each of the books is really about encouraging scientific exploration. And so this picture on the right is actually from the Water Elementary Globe storybook, the Willow Creek one, where the Globe kids, the main characters, Simon, Anita, and Dennis, meet up with Hannah, who is a water expert, and go on a trip with their teacher, Miss Patel, to go look at their their water body. And so these GLOBE kids are in every single one of the storybooks. Ms. Patel, the teacher, is also in all of the storybooks. And so they really work well together as a series. So when I said which storybooks you see, there are now 7 storybooks in the series. The brand new one that I'll talk a little bit about is the climate storybook. What in the world is happening to our climate? And then recently released, just about 2 years ago, is Aerosols, and it has a focus on sky color and being interested in what is the sky color. I love this one because, well, one, it's our content area at NASA Langley. We study atmosphere, and so air quality and climate are most closely related to us, which is why we sponsored the development of those books. But what I love about the sky color one in particular is that if you ask students what the sky color is, it takes them a little moment, and then they might say blue. And then if you ask them again and say, well, is it always the same shade of blue? Have you ever seen another color of the sky? It allows for that conversation. Then there's a book on seasons, seasonal change. That's Mystery of the Missing Hummingbirds. If you don't have hummingbirds in your area, you could still read that book because it's about seasons, and you could then put in information with your students about any animal that migrates. Water is Discoveries at Willow Creek. Soil is the Scoop on Soils, where Scoop, their dog, gets out, and they have to find out where Scoop is. Then there's one on clouds. And so they go through all the different cloud types and describe them. And then Earth as a System is a great one because it includes some artistic elements of doing a play. What I love about Elementary Globe is there's no rules to the order. There are 7 books. You can do them in any sequence that you want. We work with lots of school districts and schools, and none of them do them in the same order, which I find fascinating. But like everything in Globe, you do what fits best for the curriculum that you're already working with. And so we have one school actually that we are working with now that's a preschool program. And so they have a special ed preschool program, and my daughter goes to a sister school of theirs. And they did All About Earth because they could do the play and they could incorporate a lot of the images without having to have the students necessarily be able to read the story. So when I say what Elementary Globe resources there are, what we mean is there's a teacher implementation guide. That guide is an oldie but a goodie, and we're really excited that UCAR will be updating the implementation guide this year. It's going to come out in the fall, and it'll be updated with the next gen standards, as well as include some connections related to engineering connections, career connections, and the arts connections. So the teacher implementation guide provides suggestions to bridge science inquiry skills with literacy skills. There's reading comprehension suggestions in there, and just a few little tips and tricks for using the Elementary Globe storybooks. So when we say storybooks, there's those 7 storybooks. Each of those storybooks, at the back of the storybook, includes a teacher's guide. In the back of it, that's really more background information for the teacher about the content. And then each storybook has 3 complementary learning activities that go with it. And those activities might be about the content to help further deeper understanding of the content, or it might be about a science practice skill and honing that science practice skill some more. They're all freely available on the Globe website, and you can view them from the website. You could also print them. The copyright information is on there, as in there are no copyrights for you to print them, just to use them for classroom use. Obviously, you can't print them and try to sell them. They're also available in multiple languages, so it'd be great to look online. And then later this year, when the teacher implementation guide gets released, we're also going to be publishing them as ebooks. So we're really excited about that too. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why to do the storybooks. And for anyone who's already done the storybooks, feel free to jump in here. But what the storybooks allow you to do is to talk both about science inquiry skills and literacy skills. It's really interesting to see some studies that were done in the late 80s, early 90s, really looking at the complement between the two, because there are even similar terminology that we use for literacy skills, like compare and contrast, that we would also talk about in science inquiry. Sequencing events, linking cause and effect, all of these things that are on here are literacy skills, as well as really important to better your understanding of science inquiry skills. So here's just an example. This is actually pulled directly from the teacher's guide to give you an idea of what it provides. And so if you look through essential inquiry, right? So questions, evidence, explanations, connections, and communicate. There are examples in that teacher's guide of where specifically in the storybooks you would find examples of that. So in your classroom, if you don't have a ton of time for science, you can also trying to incorporate science text like this helps still talk about those practices of science, and they see it in action.
I just want to make sure that I've got this.
Does someone have a question? I'm going to go to the next one, which is talking about science and engineering practice skills. So one activity that I do when I do a teacher training workshop, and you as teachers might want to think about this when you're looking through the text, is even as you read the storybook, go through and think about what science and engineering practice skills do you see modeled in the storybooks. And so oftentimes we'll go through and we can find almost all of the books, almost all of the science and engineering practice skills are being modeled, and either being modeled by the students directly, because the students are the ones that are asking questions in these storybooks, and sometimes they're modeled by the teacher as well. So before I go on too much further, I want to pause and see if there's any questions. Okay, Ellen mentioned journals and journaling. I think this is a great complement to Elementary Globe. The activities, the learning activities that are used to complement the storybooks have these journaling sheets in them. And so oftentimes teachers will shrink them in size and actually cut them out and have them glued into student science notebooks or their composition book, whatever your terminology you're using. And these are just some examples of other ways that students and teachers have been utilizing science notebooks and the regular science notebook and the storybook. So in this picture on the top right, you see there's pockets, the envelope pockets for living and non-living things. And they have a pocket for plant parts. So this was part of the series when they were doing the seasons. And then in the bottom right-hand picture, what it says there is science tools, is what it says. And there are examples of different science tools that the students must have been using in more than just the Elementary Globe series, but whatever they've been using in the classroom.
So Jessica, I know Ellen, her students had done a great job of drawing pictures of what they did. They were kindergarten students from what I remember. And they did this journaling like you have here, I think. And then they turned it into their storyboard for their project, which I think was really nice.
Ah, so then they already basically had documented everything and they had pictures directly to use.
I think so, but Ellen, is that what happened with your kids? Is that how you did it?
I see a thumbs up. You can, yeah.
That's exactly what we did. Yep. Thank you.
Great.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. The picture also on the top right, if any of you haven't checked out foldables yet, we're obsessed at Langley about foldables and love making foldables and putting them into our science notebooks. And one of our past teachers, Tina Hart, who's a Globe trainer with us now, she was a middle school teacher for 20 some odd years, and she did foldables also in her middle school classroom. I say that because sometimes people think foldables are just for elementary. So here's an example that I've shared with some people, and I'd love for Ellen and others to chime in about how you can take Elementary Globe and then go through the Elementary Globe resources to then do formal Globe data collection using the protocols. So this example here is using the Mystery of the Missing Hummingbirds book. And they read the Hummingbirds book. And here's one of the pictures in there. And what it says, if you can't read it, is Anita is at the board and they're writing out, they're making notes about the hummingbirds and when they saw them and when they didn't see them, what those hummingbirds might need to survive. And then they're making a list of what their environment is like in the summer and what their environment is like in the fall. The data sheet on the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that it has that journal feel that Ellen also showed. And you could write directly in there, and that's an activity where you go outside, and it's an observation activity. So it's really practicing that skill of observation, and you ask students to draw a big picture view. So what's the landscape? What's a group of trees? What does this area look like? And then they do another drawing of something zoomed in. So a leaf or a piece of the tree or something on the ground, honing in on what those observation skills are, and maybe even taking it to that next level and asking students to think about questions. The picture right next to that on the right is also a student science journal doing the different activity that complements this storybook. And you can see how they did it in their notebook. And they started to use bar graphs and introducing bar graphs and counting up the number of times they saw different colors. So then this idea of colors matches really well with then doing the green up and green down protocol, which is seeing how plants change with seasons, and they basically are matching up colors just like they were before in the complementary learning activity. So here's one example of the progression. There isn't a progression, so to speak, identified. There isn't a one-for-one. We've got lots of ideas and have seen how it's been done in other places, but again, it's whatever works best for your classroom. So I want to pause here and see if anybody else has any comments about taking it from storybook and hands-on activities to then data collection.
So we are doing this every Friday, actually. So I've taken this page here and that journal page, and then every Friday we go outside and observe the same tree. And the kids, you know, you can see that their details are getting much better every Friday. You can really just kind of, and they're very, you know, we're using math skills involved in that too. And then we're collecting the leaves and then putting them in a Ziploc baggie. And, you know, and the students are, you know, making references to the colors and the changes. So it's brought up a lot of questions. In fact, even their, you know, the clouds, they're getting better with identification with the clouds. So I'm just really excited. And like I said, I have used different journals before, but this journal really works well for my younger students. So I love it. And it's just, it's right where my students are, so.
That's great. Anyone else want to share anything or have questions or concerns?
I guess I wanted to ask Ellen. So Ellen, did you focus on the hummingbirds book, or was it a series of books that you used? Because I'm trying to link the worms to the books.
So we just got a new curriculum, and so I was looking through, just trying to figure out how I can utilize GLOBE, because I love GLOBE, and I was getting a class of mainly 4-year-olds, so I wanted to make sure that surface temperature, although we're still doing surface temperature, I looked and was going through the books, and so I thought that we could make an observation of a tree and then see where we came with, you know, where the students are going with their questions. So I kind of was leading that way, but no, I didn't go with the hummingbirds per se. So
Okay.
Ellen, I think you liked that data sheet so much. You were using it all across rather than using the
yes.
Papers that went with what you were doing. Am I correct?
Yes, because I tried, it's, you know, my kids with their spatial awareness, you know, trying to get the worms in the picture, and then it just, you know, trying to get them to be able to, I like how they can, because we're graphing weather every day, and so that's another thing that, you know, if you look closely with the journal, you know, they can identify right away if it's sunny, cloudy, you know, and then temperature as far as if it's cold, very cold, you know, so just easier for the younger students to be able to identify. They have check marks, and versus the other journals, for younger students, I had just I tried lots of different ways to journal for my younger students. And this one just seems, like I said, it just seems to work well for the real little ones. So, but I love, I do like, what Jessica has, the journals that the other teachers got, I think, it just really depends on your students and where they're at. And so.
And there's some teachers who already incorporate science notebooks and foldables into their class. And so it might not be too much of a jump to then create things specifically for elementary GLOBE activities. Mm-hmm. And so this is really a program designed to fit wherever you are.
Yes.
So for the students that did the worm investigation, if soils fits into your content at all, there's a couple of fun activities where they look at identifying soil and characterizing soil.
Right.
And they also then call it treasures, where you're looking for treasures in your soil.
Right.
Also known as worms or other things that might be in your soil.
Things, yes. Yes.
One of the things that we also have found going out with teachers is seeing the complement between sky color and the hummingbird book, because there is such a focus on color. And we have found that when we have done like a whole school group, that the arts teachers get really excited about these two books, because this one is talking about lots of different colors, and in the sky color book and the aerosols book, we're talking about shades of blue, and that's an elementary art skill, is understanding that there's multiple shades of a certain color. And so it's interesting to kind of think of how you might be able to connect it across your curriculum. So let me share a little bit more about the latest storybook, which is what in the world is happening to our climate. There really is one overarching big theme of this book, and that's that different places around the world are impacted by climate differently, and that impact then affects more parts of the world. And so the storybook actually starts out with a huge snowstorm in Boston. And that's something that we really wanted to do, to also then incorporate some of these sub-themes of what is weather versus what is climate. Talking a little bit more about sea level rise, introducing that terminology of sea level rise, and also talking about what you can do, what we can do in terms of sustainability, and also what we might be able to do in terms of helping climate long term, and not just necessarily climate adaptations. So some of those are some of the themes in the book. There are the 3 complementary activities that go along with it. Each of those activities is really pulled from certain sections of that storybook. And so weather versus climate, there's a larger GLOBE activity that was created during the Student Climate Research Campaign in the early 2000s. That's a really nice weather versus climate activity where you're looking at graphs. And so if your students aren't there yet in terms of looking at maps and graphs and seeing the differences over time of weather data points, so climate being what you expect and weather is what you get. And that theme is throughout the book. We love that weather versus climate activity so much from the GLOBE program that we decided to make it a little bit different and make it more age appropriate for elementary students in here. Seashores on the Move is about sea level rise, and they make a model of a shoreline. And students love this activity because they get to play and be creative and design their own coastal environment, and then see what happens as you add water into your tub of the coastal environment. And then we're all a part of the solution is actually partially looking at carbon footprint. And then there's carbon footprint calculators that help you determine how changes in your daily activity might impact your carbon count and your carbon emissions. So those are the 3 activities that complement it. And let me back up for a minute and also add that all of the storybooks and the learning activities are developed with scientists and teachers together. And then all of the activities in the storybooks are then piloted in classrooms, in elementary classrooms. So it goes through a number of round of iterations, and some of you may have even been involved in some of the piloting and feedback times. And so when the storybook is written, it goes out to the GLOBE community for review. It also then goes out to scientists for review and those educators. Same thing with the learning activities as they're developed. Then they get piloted and teachers provide feedback, and then that's when we create that final version. So I just wanted to give you a little idea of how these are even created. And that matches well with the rest of the GLOBE program, co-developed with scientists and educators. So here are some of the reasons why to do elementary GLOBE. This list was actually created by GLOBE partners when we did specifically an elementary GLOBE meeting. And so it's kind of fun to see what their answers are. And a lot of people just, I think it's fun. The storybooks are fun and the activities are fun. So I'm gonna stop here. Oh, I guess I can give you my contact information. Again, my name is Jessica Taylor. As Kevin said, I'm at NASA Langley Research Center, and we have a GLOBE partnership page on the globe.gov website. That's at the bottom here. The reason I bring that partnership page up is we have some additional resources on our page. If you're interested in copies of the latest 2 storybooks, so Sky Color or Climate, if you would email me, because we have some copies of those available that we would be able to ship out to you. And so for aerosols, basically no number is too high for the amount that you can request from us. For climate, we just did a smaller run of that. But certainly you're welcome to request a class set, for example, to use in your school. So it's jessica.e.taylor@nasa.gov. So before I show you, I just have one more slide that has resources, other NASA resources for elementary. I wanted to see if there was any other discussion we wanted to have around specifically elementary GLOBE.
And thanks, Jessica, for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
All right, do we have questions for Jessica? A discussion? Ideas for using it?
I just went ahead and shared my email address again in the chat. It's jessica.e.taylor@nasa.gov. And so if you need a class set of the aerosols or the climate storybook, please reach out to me and we can mail those to you.
And I should ask for a class set too.
Don't worry, I think Mike did.
Okay, yeah, Mike always asks
You beat
for
me
it.
to it. I was just going to say, Mike probably already ordered several.
Yeah, we just got the climate books just arrived into my storage area yesterday. And so I haven't even gotten a chance to put them away yet.
Great.
I want to share a little bit about why we got really interested in elementary GLOBE. My background is in GLOBE. I was a GLOBE student at Florida State University, which meant that I stood outside every day at solar noon and collected clouds, relative humidity, air temperature, well, no, I didn't do surface temperature because we were on the roof, and did aerosols, precipitation, barometric pressure. I did all of that while I was a student at Florida State and got really involved in the GLOBE program. And throughout that entire time, up until I came to NASA Langley, I actually wasn't familiar with the elementary GLOBE resources. But in Virginia, a number of years ago, our state passed legislation to allow schools that weren't doing well in math or reading to submit a proposal to basically get a waiver from doing science. And so that they would use their science blocks and time to focus on either whichever content area that they were scoring low in, reading or mathematics. And so we got really interested in how do we help schools continue to integrate some elements of science into their daily instruction if they're no longer allowed to do science. Because I've worked with lots of schools that have commented about having no time to maybe 15 minutes a week, 30 minutes a week, maybe 15 minutes a day. And so that's why we really started getting more involved in Elementary Globe, because we saw the storybooks as a means to get into the schools.
So I wanted to share something, so I'll share my screen. And when anybody has a question, just to bring it up. So you see on the screen, we have our flyer for the summer. This is the University of Toledo flyer. And some of you are in the area, or even if you're not in the area, we're going to focus on Elementary Globe this summer with our teachers. But what we're trying to do is to get teachers from the same district or feeder pattern and like Toledo Public Schools or something like that. So some of you who are high school teachers, if there's a teacher of younger grades that you think would like to come, and we'd like you to do that so you could have teachers from different grade levels, being part of our program. So it's going to be July 9th through 13th. And you guys know the routine. Early in the morning till late afternoon. We don't keep you through dinner time though. And then, these are the things the teachers will receive. We have a stipend, again, for the teachers. And so you could come back with your teacher. We want to have partners. So if you say even Ellen, if you find another teacher in your school, you're a kindergarten teacher, and then maybe there's a fourth grade teacher that you would like to bring, and the two of you come and do the workshop together. Someone's a middle school teacher. If you can find an elementary teacher to come with you, the two of you could come together. Anyway, that's kind of the goal. We're trying to build this vertical integration, we call it. Yeah. Laura said she had so much fun last summer. Oh, did I have the wrong dates, Janet? So I guess it's July 10th through 14th. Yeah, we're not starting on Sunday, although we'll be here on Sunday setting up. Email the flyer to us. Okay, I'll do that. I'll email it to my list. I don't know if you're not on my list for emails. I know Cassie, if you're on my list. Let's see, if someone's on the phone. Jolanta, I'm not sure if you're on my list. So if anybody's not on my list, put your email in the chat box if you want me to add you to my list. I'll email the flyer to.
We'll send the corrected dates. And for our satellite teachers, we already have a group already created. If you receive emails from Janet Struble, then you're on my list. That Kevin will have.
Oh yeah, Sarah posted, the flyer says elementary teachers, but maybe we should note that other levels are considered because we assume if we have a pair of teachers, one may be middle school or high school. That's a good point. So our flyer doesn't reflect what we're trying to do. Thanks, Sarah.
I would also add that a number of teachers that we work with use the storybooks for English language learners at higher grade levels, so 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. I have typically presented them as, they have been intended for a K-4 audience, but from teacher feedback that we have received, there are a number of teachers that find it very appropriate for their 5th, 6th, and 7th grades as well.
That's a good point. Good. And I know a number of school districts have a lot of English as a second language or English learners.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know that. Okay. All right.
So I do just have one more slide, Kevin.
Okay, sure.
And I just put a handful of additional resources together, and that's other resources specific for elementary audiences. So there are things specifically through the NASA Education website. So if you go to nasa.gov and look under education, it does have things separated out by grade band. So there's a K through 4 grade band, a 5 through 8, and a 9 through 12. And so you can see some resources directly on there. And they have put together these, they call them like toolkits or something like that. And they put one out every couple weeks that are just 2 to maybe 4 resources on a topic. So I really like those. NASA Wavelength, if you've never been on nasawavelength.org, that's where all of the NASA science education activities are posted. Those are the ones that have been reviewed through the review process that we have. And there is a pretty robust search tool on there. So you can search by grade band, content, amount of time, different things like that. So that's a great resource. 2 websites that are developed specifically for elementary audiences. One is called The Space Place. Lots of fun activities on there. Short activities or just little things to read, as well as Climate Kids, so climate.nasa.gov if you're teaching climate. There's also a series of videos called E-Clips, and there's a series of them that are for elementary, middle, and high school audiences. The Our World series is what's been developed for elementary. And so it's just nice sometimes to have videos specifically for elementary audiences.
Yeah, the E-Clips are really great videos. The people at NASA are very professional in how they do these things.
So I'll leave this up for another second in case people want to copy anything down.
All right. Okay, well, thanks, Jessica. And to finish things out here, can't have a webinar without talking about the next one. So let's see, I think you can see my screen here. Basically, every 2 weeks we have a webinar. And so our next one is February 8th. And Joe, I believe you're the teacher feature. So you're down as the teacher feature right now. Hopefully you can do that. And then our NASA nugget is, I think Sarah from NASA Langley is going to talk about the new GLOBE cloud protocol. Because actually the cloud protocol is changing. It's going to be more engaging, more exciting, include satellite remote sensing. Jessica, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so we're taking the existing GLOBE protocol, modifying it slightly. Those modifications are being made to actually better match with what would be needed to match with satellite imagery. Some of the background of this is many of you may have heard of the SCOOL project. SCOOL. That program is actually merging with the GLOBE program. And so what it's bringing with it is this more robust cloud protocol that students have been doing also all over the world, just like GLOBE. The SCOOL program actually was really based in the elementary audiences. So we're excited about being able to bring this to the GLOBE program. And then what will happen complementary with the change of the cloud protocol is now when you submit cloud observations, if you've done them during a satellite overpass time, which we'll be making available to you, if you've done them during a satellite overpass time, you'll actually wind up getting an email back with that satellite match. And so that satellite match will come directly to your email, and you will also get it from the data visualization that's on the GLOBE site.
Great. Let's see. Okay. So GLOBE is having the Student Research Symposium office hours, and I am going to be the person doing the office hours on February 1st from 3:30 to 5. So if you have questions, I'm going to bring up the web page for it. This is the web page on the GLOBE website. It talks about the U.S. Regional Symposia teacher resources. And there's a series of webinars that have already been done, and you can click on them and watch the webinar. And for February 1st, we're going to be talking about research questions, writing a research question. So this is a chance, if maybe you could get your kids to have a research question. What is their research question? And then call in, and you could pass it by me. Or if you have kids after school, they could call in. The kids could call in. That'd be cool. And then there's a series of them. So you see here, February 14th, there's another one. March 2nd, March 15th. So these are chances for you to call in about your projects. There's analyzing GLOBE data is one of them. Writing conclusions, putting it all together in your project, your poster, etc. We're going to have a number of teacher blogs as well. So this is an opportunity to do some more things.
Kevin, could you scroll up to show them where the phone number is?
There's a phone number?
Yeah, with the passcode.
Oh, okay.
For your office hours at the top. See? Right there.
Right here. Oh, okay. Yeah, so here's the number.
So that number does not change. So for every office hours, that's the phone number and the passcode.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thanks, Janet, because it's like I wouldn't know that. So I have to call that as well. That's great. So I'll put it in the chat box here. Okay, last thing before I let you go. Some of you know, and you've got emails from me, NASA's going to fly an aircraft over Toledo and Lake Erie and this area sometime between February 20th and 24th. They're trying to get as many schools to take surface temperature observations during that week, and specifically probably around 3 o'clock. So it is kind of late in the day when schools might be getting out. So it's something, hopefully you'll be able to help me out. It's a really unique opportunity. NASA doesn't fly over your area taking data ever. So for them to fly over Toledo, and they did it specifically for us, to link the thermal remote sensing from the aircraft to the GLOBE student data. So we want to try to get as much data as possible on those dates. And I'm going to probably send out more emails and then have maybe a webinar. Kids could call in or something like that to ask questions about it, maybe later as we get into February. Anyway, a lot of information, and I hope you're getting your students to work on projects, and we're excited about the spring, and well, actually snow is coming, but in winter back. So we're excited about that anyway. All right, so is data from Richland County? I would say yes, Susan, that all the data from anybody in this region will be useful, because we're not only going to use the aircraft, we're going to use the new GOES satellite, GOES-R, which you may have heard about. We talk about on this webinars, which is now called GOES-16. And so, of course, the GOES imagery takes thermal images of the entire United States, or actually North America, and we're going to use that with the aircraft and the ground observations. So, yeah, anybody in this region would be very helpful. All right, well, thanks, Sarah. Okay, everybody, thanks for calling in, and I hope you have a good rest of your week. Yeah, and bundle up for starting tomorrow. I enjoy the winter, so it's good for me. All right, have a good night, everybody.